The WHO posted a study that 2 million deaths yearly are tied to inactivity. So did you know that sitting too much is giving you the same health risk as if you were smoking? Science is saying that sitting too much and being sedentary is killing us faster than we think. So this is segment 8 of our health series, talking about the ties to being unhealthy, right? Which leads to having to have more health services done and higher insurance rates. So it's all tied together. But being sedentary, otherwise known on as sitting on your butt way too much, is causing mental health issues, physical health issues, and what's really interesting is that it's just creating this cultural phenomenon of being wildly accepted. So let's get into it. So mental erosion. So being sedentary, right? Or just sitting on your butt doing nothing is reducing endorphins, right? So endorphins are just what makes you feel good, right? It's messing with your mind and it's doing it beyond just everything, right? So you're increasing your risk of depression and anxiety because you're sitting too much. You're sitting too still. It's something that people are doing more and more of because it's so easy. It's so easy to sit in a recliner and do nothing. It's so easy to binge a Netflix series. And I'm not picking on binging Netflix series because I like to do the same thing. But if you're sitting there hours and hours and hours, right? I'm the biggest offender of this. I've done this many times. But think about it. You're not getting up and doing anything. You're not getting up and walking outside. Yeah, you're not exercising. What do you think that's doing to you? I mean, it's not healthy. There's a 2020 meta statistic that says that sedentary behavior actually increases, wait for it, depression by 10%. Just by sitting around, you get depressed. I mean, that's what the study is saying. So I don't know. I have to say that there's been several times when I've had a hard week and there's a lot going on. There's a lot on my mind. I just want to zone out on the television or look at social media and just look at it. And next thing I know, it's been 4, 5, 6 hours and I'm like just still doing nothing. And it doesn't really make me feel good. So not only does it not make me feel good mentally, but let's talk about the hit that you're taking on your physical body. So as you all know, I've shared in the past that I lost 83 pounds, right? So I talk about that a lot. And yes, it's diet. Yes, it was some level of discipline in what I was eating in the diet. I didn't do a whole lot of exercise, meaning that I was, working out 5 hours a day. No, I didn't lose it that way. But I know the one thing that I wasn't doing was being sedentary. So I was getting up more. I was walking around. I was being more active, right? Not necessarily in the gym, but I was being active. And what's crazy about this is that being sedentary, sitting on your butt all day, and we all do it if you have a job that, you work in an office or you're in the car going to a sales call or you're going to meetings, you're sitting down for lunch. The WHO posted a study that 2 million deaths yearly are tied to inactivity. I mean, that's kind of crazy. 2 million deaths for just being inactive, for sitting on your butt all day. That is a scary statistic. Not to mention that it has so much increased risk, health issues, heart disease, and diabetes. That seems to be a chronic health condition and all the things that we talked about in this series, but heart disease, diabetes, right? Obesity. So think about this. Sitting 8 hours a day without any activity matches mortality rate of smoking or obesity. I mean, people do that all the time, right? That's not an uncommon thing that you're actually sitting down for 8 hours. I mean, 8 hours is 1/3 of the day, but that absolutely blew my mind. So given that statistic, Why don't you do this while you're watching this podcast or listening to it? Stand up right now, right? Right now. Just do something, do some in-place squats, walk around as you're listening to it, but do something. So let's get into the last segment. The third, okay, is talking about cultural implications, right? So in our culture, it is not uncommon to essentially be inactive, right? Because we are sitting at desks all day long. We're in a car, right? Even if our kids are going to school, 60% of the time in the classroom, they're sitting down, right? They're learning. We have desk jobs, right? We have screen time, right? We have all of these things that just make it okay for us to sit on our butts and really do nothing, because that's just kind of what the world is going to, right? Because you don't really have a lot of physical jobs. There's physical jobs that are out there, but there's a lot of people that are doing jobs, whether they're being on the phone, whether they're looking at their screen, while they're typing emails, and they're sitting at their desk all day long, and they're not doing anything that creates any type of activity. But the weird thing about it is it's socially acceptable, and it's really shaping us to be weaker and sicker, right? Because if we go back to the statistics, being sedentary, sitting on your butt all day long, right, without doing any type of activity is giving us chronic disease, and we're not living as long as we could be because we're not doing anything, right? We're just sitting on our butts. So if we tie it, right, back to the overemphasis of healthcare premiums, right, thinking about how expensive it is, right, because of this inactivity, the CDC says that it's costing $90 billion a year in healthcare because people aren't as active as they should be. So think about that. $90 billion of healthcare, right, per the CDC, is being spent on what? The fact, indirectly, right, or directly tied to the fact that, people aren't moving around as much and they're being sedentary. So think about this. This is a problem. So have you guys ever seen Wall-E, right? I think it was a Pixar movie, and it was kind of crazy because you had all these people on a spaceship because they had these robots that did everything for them. And they were sedentary and they're flying around because of, I don't remember the exact storyline, but the concept was when they got to the point of wanting to be able to do anything for themselves, they couldn't, right? Because they were so used to not having to do anything for themselves, and these robots did everything, and so on and so forth. Watch the movie, you get the hint, right? People were sedentary, they were unhealthy. And the weirdest thing about it was when they did finally get to the planet, that had supposed life on it again, and they went to go stand up, they hardly could do it. But the other thing that was really crazy that I watched personally was these blue zone documentaries, talking about these people in these blue zones, right, that were, consistently active, even elderly people. And they were showing that because of the way they were eating, right? But the number one thing that was really interesting was they were going out and doing stuff every day. They were working in the garden, they were walking, they were actually doing some level of physical labor, right? And it was amazing how many of these people were living to, 100 years old. But the crazy thing about it is that it wasn't like they weren't able to do things. They weren't decrepit. They were physically able to sit down, stand up, do physical labor. But what was crazy is that their minds were good too, right? They didn't have a high level of dementia and brain deterioration. So I really think that this is something that we should really be thinking about. Living here in this culture where, sitting down and having stuff done for us or working at a desk or whatever that is, you have to really think about like what's going on in these blue zones. So, yep, I really enjoy the documentary. And what I would say in the spirit of things is if you do watch the documentary, you should stand up and watch it. Don't watch it sitting down. So, a couple of things, right? There's got to be a little bit of takeaway. We know that if you're working an office job or you're working, or you're coming home, here's what I recommend you do. It's real simple. So, once an hour, get up and walk around. Just do a lap. Okay? Or, if you don't have a place that you can go and walk to in your particular area, then, do some body weight squats. They're really not that hard to do. Do 10 of them. Like do 10 of them every hour or do 10 push-ups. Better yet, if you're feeling really, really advantageous right now, do both. Do 10 push-ups and 10 squats every hour. Think about that during the workday. If you get up and do that, and in 8 hours, you can do the math, right? That's 80 squats during that 8-hour period, or 80 push-ups, whatever it is, or even if it's 5 minutes of walking, it all adds up. But do something. Thank you for listening today. If you found this episode helpful, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I always encourage you to subscribe, and I would love to hear any type of feedback on this very subject. Let's start a conversation in the comments. And if you're feeling extra generous today, leave a review. You can find us on YouTube at Hey Charles Biz, Hey Charles on Apple Podcast and Spotify, Hey Charles 77 on Instagram and TikTok, and Charles Ernst on LinkedIn. See you next time.